Yo, what is good, YouTube? It is your boy BA, and we are back again with another new video, man. Today, we are showing you guys our final greatsword and bow build. Now, I know I've done a lot of changes, but I think this video will wrap everything up and show you guys why I set on this build and why it's been working so well for me. I've just really been enjoying using the bow and greatsword. I'm also gonna toss in a few tips and tricks as far as using this build for both PvP and open world PvE. Did I say PvE twice? PvP and PvE. Y'all know what I'm saying. But anyways, to get started with the build, I'm gonna show you guys the gear that I'm wearing, the gems that I'm wearing in the gear and all my weapons, as well as all of my jewelry, and I'll show you my stats and my weapon tree. So actually we'll start with the stats and weapon tree. So without any food, my build is 370 dex, 100 con. I usually run the chili con armadillo food, the 40 dex food. When I pop that, it takes me all the way up to 410. So I run 410 dex, 100 con. And over to my weapons. With our greatsword, we are still rocking out. I think this is the exact same that we've had for the last two builds. Relentless Rush is just extremely good as far as finishing off kills, engaging in battles, chasing people down. Overall, I think it's just a really great ability. Skyward Slash does a ton of damage, and I do really like the stacks of Rin that it adds. So that's one reason why I switched to this from Leeching Crosscut, as well as I do not like being locked in an animation. I feel like with Leeching Crosscut, you get locked into that animation for a good chunk of time, and I'm not really a big fan of that. And then lastly, we have Steadfast Strike, which I really love because it staggers and pulls. It works really well in PvP and PvE, so it's a really great ability to use. One other thing that I really enjoy is Unflinching Blade, because it gives you grit on your heavy attack and it inflicts bleed for 6 seconds, which is really good. I love adding DLTs to enemies, and I feel like the more you can add to them, because like this does stack, you can stack it up to 5 times, which is absolutely insane. So it's really good to work those heavy attacks into your fights. Next we'll move over to our bow. We're not really doing anything different with the bow either. I think one change we made is we left this bottom one on the explosive arrow, and we took the direct hit for our poison shot. Mainly because we do land our poison shot a lot on our targets, so it's nice to have that little bit of extra damage. And then also, I am not the best with explosive arrow, and I notice when I use this ability and that radius is smaller, I don't hit the targets or do the damage that I would like to do. So dropping it down has helped me a whole lot with just using explosive arrow as an ability altogether. So I definitely would keep that in mind. But if you are really good at landing that explosive arrow, especially after the update where I think they're going to make that arrow a little bit bigger in size, which should be really good, this thing hits hard. So it wouldn't be bad at all to pick that up over this. And then lastly, like I said, yeah, 410, 100 con. This is what the weapons kind of balance out to as far as base damage. Now, moving on to our gear, we have made quite a few changes, and I think this is where the biggest impact on our build has been made. So we have moved over to a nature damage build. I absolutely love this. The DLT it does, the nature damage is insane. The damage you do overall is just insane. I've really been enjoying this build in both PvP and PvE. And honestly, let me show you guys what we are working with. So we are still using our main bow here, and this is one of the main reasons why we switched over to this build, because I just wanted to mess around and see with how much nature damage we can do. So we use this bow, and we also switch it in for this bow here. They both are almost identical. The only difference is the entombment and chain nature. Really just kind of depends on how I feel like playing that day. They both are extremely good bows. They both do extremely good damage. So one thing I would say is, if you're going into this, try to get you one with entombment on it if you can. I think right now I possibly would want to try to get attunement, enchanted, and keenly jagged. Like if I can get my hands on one of those, I think that would be best in slot for me for this build. Next we have our greatsword, which we also have entombment on. So we actually have entombment and enchanted on here, and this thing absolutely melts. It does so much damage, like you will wipe people. I absolutely love this because this allows you to get real gritty with the build. You can get into the battle, you can get into those melee fights, and you can do a lot of damage. And with Relentless Freedom, you can get out of those battles as well. So overall, this build has been absolutely awesome. As I said, I am running the nature damage build, gems, and all of the gear. The way I have it set up is I have 11.5 damage resistance across the board for physical, and 6% damage resistance across the board for elemental. So I would say I've seen a lot of people do quite a lot of different things as far as the resistance. A lot of people build up thrust. And I think that's why I've been having so much fun with this build, because it does seem like a lot of people do run the thrust damage resistant gems, and at least here you're splitting your damage to elemental damage that will still allow you to kick out a lot of damage, even when they're running those thrust resistance gems. Because I know that was a question that I've been asked quite a lot, as far as like, why would I put the split damage gems in my weapons? And that's mainly just to split that damage so that if people are building resistance against what your weapons are. So like for my bow, it is thrust damage, so a lot of people will build thrust damage resistance to try to stop the bow from doing so much damage to them. So that really comes into hand. And same for the greatsword with slash. I've seen people run the moonstones to lower that damage that the greatsword and other slash weapons do. So I would say the gems can be personal preference. This has been the setup for me that's been working really well. I would say one thing with this build is get away from flamethrower. If you don't get away from flamethrower, it's gonna melt you. I have no counter to that. I would say get back, use your range, and have a range battle against that mage, but don't get too close, because unless you can get that stagger in, the stagger with steadfast actually does work. If you can get that stagger in while they're flamethrowing you, then you're allowed to do a crap ton of damage with the greatsword and most likely take out that mage. But if you don't have that ability up and ready, get away, because honestly, I just get melted down trying to do other abilities to them. To show off my gear, nothing has changed too much as far as trying to get best gear. I'm still looking for different pieces, but I think if I move away from a lot of these pieces that I'm using now, I want to make sure that it is for sure a full piece of gear that I'm going to use, because I think from here on out I would like to add in a couple weapon perks within resilient and shrinking fort, but I also want to make sure I'm keeping these freedoms. See the empower breaking or empower breaker, that's something I can do away with. Refreshing ward, I think I can do away with on this build as well. So there's a few pieces in here with the spear ability, so I don't really use that too much. So there are a few pieces that I can upgrade and make a lot better for the build overall. So I wouldn't say this is a best gear set by any means, but I would say the resilient, the freedom, and the shrinking fortification are the major plays in this build that allows me to stay alive within a lot of these fights. As far as my jewelry, the main thing that's changed is my ring. So we were able to pick up a nature damage, hardy, and leeching ring. So the leeching, it wasn't the ideal third perk, but I think it's a really good third perk that comes in handy when I don't even notice it. So it's one that I've been kind of using, and it's one that can be switched out within another build, but I would say hardy is personal preference as well. I've seen a lot of people not run hardy as well, so that's another one that you may be able to switch out for more preferred personal perks. But this ring has been definitely doing the job for me so far, and I'm gonna rock with it until I find something better. Lastly, we are still using our Grasping Vines heart rune. It just really helps. It's really helpful to get out of those sticky situations. Bam, slam it on the ground, hit your roll, get away, get your heals off, reset the fight. It allows you to take the fight into your control. And I think as we get into the tips and tricks that I have for both the PvP and PvE, that's going to be one thing that's going to be important and going to come into play a lot, as far as taking control of the fight, making the fight yours, fight at your own tempo, kind of thing. So that's why I have my abilities kind of set up the way they are. It allows me to kind of take control of the fight the way I want to at the times that I want to. But that's about it for all of my gear. The next step of this video is going to be me going into the tips and tricks, where I have a lot of overall video clips that will be playing in the background for the PvP and PvE that will kind of showcase a lot of the things that I'm talking about as far as the tips. I'm by no means a PvP demon, but I'm an old man that went from being at the bottom of the OPR list to being top 5. And not saying that OPR is like a great deciding factor on if you're amazing at PvP or not, but I can say within that time frame, I've had a lot more fun in PvP in this game. And I would say one thing that I take when I play video games is that I play them to have fun. So I find what's fun for me, and that's what I go with in the game. And this build is extremely fun for me, and it allows me to be pretty decent at the game as well. So I hope you guys can take some of these tips, some of these tricks in my build, and go forth and destroy on your respective servers. As long as it's not against me, I hope you guys do absolutely amazing. But here goes the tips, guys. Alright, so we're going to move on to these PvP tips, and tip number 1 is going to be for you OPR demons. So some of you guys may know this trick, some of you guys may not. I know I did until a few days ago. I don't know how long it's been a part of the game. If it's been a part of the game for a while, then I have salvaged way too many purple weapons. So there's a lot of times you'll get purple weapons that have 2 really good perks, and you're like, man, I wish that would have came as a gold weapon. You can actually now level those weapons up to 600 gear score using your Umbro shards, and it will actually give you a 3rd random perk tied to that weapon. So you can actually do that with any of the purple 590 plus weapons that you get out of your OPR crates. I know I have salvaged so many weapons, and if I would have known that this was a thing, I probably could have had so many just best in slot weapons to use without having to spend so much money off of the trade post. The next tip I have PvP wise for you guys is that if you are trying to get better at PvP, one thing that you need to know is that you will die. It is okay, everybody's gonna die in this game, but that's the only way you're going to get better, man. You have to try new things, you have to keep trying, try different things. If something doesn't work, try something different, but it's okay to die, it's okay to try. You'll never figure out what works for you, what combination of things works for you, what gear works for you, what weapons work for you overall if you don't try. This build right here, the Greatsword and Bow build, may not be for you, but keep trying. You'll find something out there that you like. And that's one thing that I've learned with this build, is that when I first started using it, I was not very good. It was very hard for me to get the hang of I guess the melee combat, just up and close personal combat. So it took some time to get used to, but overall, as long as you don't give up, you will be able to get the hang of it. It just takes a lot of time and practice. Don't be scared to try, because I feel like in this game you have very few opportunities PvP wise to try different things and attempt to learn from mistakes. My next tip when it comes to PvP will be take control of the fight. Fight on your terms. You don't always have to get in there and slash. Take your time, slow down the fight. Every fight doesn't have to be won right away. Take your time, because sometimes things will happen that will throw you off that you have to react to, and it's okay to take a step back, heal up, slow the fight down, and then fight on your terms. That's why I use a lot of the abilities that I use, because it allows me to move around a little bit, but also like the little staggers, the poison shot, the DOT. I try to do a lot to mess with my opponent so that there's not any wasted time when I'm slowing down the fight and taking it into my own terms. You'll see that in a lot of the clips. You'll see me kind of back off sometimes, or you're even just slow down and not attack. Sometimes you have to just think of your next move and make sure that you are putting yourself in the best position to win that fight. Make the right decision so that you don't make the wrong decision and have to react from that. My next tip for PvP is going to kind of go along with the last tip, but I will say this is going to be managing your stamina and timing your dodges. So those are going to be two very important things that I learned very quickly. It is very easy to panic. It is very easy to delete all of your stamina right away, and it is very easy to put yourself in a very bad decision or bad spot because you have no stamina. I do this still very often, and this is one of the things that I work on daily when it comes to getting better at PvP, is making sure I calm down, take control of the fight. You don't have to keep spamming your dodges. You really have to make sure you time your dodges at the time of their attacks to get out of them. A lot of times I will panic when I get hit with a grab. Well, honestly, you don't have to panic. Take your time, make sure you have your stamina right, roll out at the end, you're good to go. There's a lot of things that are a lot more controllable in this game when you kind of take a step back, relax, not panic, and think about when to make those dodges. And I know the fights kind of come at you really quickly, but it can be very easy to kind of slow things down in your mind and not just think about everything that's going on in that OPR or that open world, and just kind of focus on that 1v1 battle that you may be having at that moment. So the next tip that I have for you guys, especially will be for this build in particular, will be to use heavy attacks. Especially with that greatsword, when you get into battle and use that heavy attack, it gives you grit. That is one thing that you don't really have much of at all with this build, and when you're up close and personal, it helps out a lot. Not only does it that, it adds a stack of bleed onto your target if you connect, so make sure you try to connect those in whenever you can. You can stack up to 5 of those bleeds with the greatsword, so make sure you're adding those in whenever you can. Alright guys, and my very last PvP tip that I have for you guys today is to have fun, man. I feel like a lot of people take the game out of the game. Like, at the end of the day, it is a game, and I know you want to get better. I know people are very competitive, but at the end of the day, it is a game. Have fun. I personally get on to have fun, and it's very enjoyable. I don't complain a lot about the game. I don't really have very many issues with the game overall. I get on and I enjoy the game and I have fun. I have a blast every time I get on. Honestly, like, I really enjoy this game. Like, I'm almost at 3,500 hours in, and I still cannot wait to get on this game every time I get home. I'm telling you, I enjoy it. I have fun. I do the things that I have fun in the game. Sometimes I can get on and just go around and gather things for hours. You know, you don't always have to be doing one specific thing in this game, and I think that is one thing that a lot of people don't think about. And if you're not having fun, what are you doing? So now it's time for our PvE tricks and tips. So I don't have as many as I have for PvP, just because for PvE wise, I've mainly used this build in just the open world. But I mean, I do use it all over. I use it in Brimstone, I use it in Shatter Mountains, I use it in Reekwater, and I don't really run into any issues outside of very high level elite bosses. Now, one thing, I personally have not done a ton of dungeons, and from the information that I've gathered from me asking around to different people is that the GOAT weapons in PvE are hatchet, spear, rapier, sword, and shield. I don't know how well the bow and the greatsword build fits into dungeons, but you guys may actually have more experience in that than I do. And if you guys have been using a bow and greatsword build going through different dungeons and different mutations, feel free to let me know down below, because I would love to hear about that, because I personally would love to learn more about running this weapon combination within dungeons and being a helpful member of the team. You know, I never want to feel like I'm letting down the rest of the team because I'm not doing as much damage or I'm dying too much, or you know, it's a learning process with everything. Just like you guys are here to get a few tips that you may learn something for PvP, I'm constantly still trying to learn things each and every day for PvP and PvE. And I think overall it's just a journey within this game. I absolutely love this game, and I'm going to continue to learn everything I can about it while having fun. But to move on to these PvE tips, I think one of the biggest things in PvE that I learned with this is to slow the fight down, especially when you are 1v1 a larger boss, because a lot of those times the more important thing is going to be dodging their attacks than trying to pound them with damage right away. So as long as you cannot get hit, you're able to put out more damage to those big bosses. Over time, you will be able to take them down. But if you cannot dodge those attacks, you will get hit and you will die. You don't have a ton of kind of get out the way like the rapier, where you can evade and do a lot of different things to get out of the heat of the battle. You got your relentless freedom, and that's about it with this build. I don't have the evade shot or anything like that. So you have to be really, really careful. Make sure you manage your stamina, manage your dodges, so that you dodge when they're attacking and get out of the way to not get hit. Sometimes with some of these bosses, it will take you some time to figure out their attack pattern, but a lot of the bosses are very predictable to where you can predict how they're going to attack to allow you to kind of get out of the way of that attack and follow up with your damage. So that will be my most important tip for PvE. Outside of that, I would say really not much more to say, but have fun, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, if you guys learned something new today, remember to hit a like on the video. And if you guys are feeling your boy BA, make sure you subscribe to the channel, man. I have a lot more coming for you guys. So until the next video, you guys stay cool, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.
Chocolatey Chad, I got my chocolatey Chad. I got my chocolatey Chad, oh baby.